Kia ora. My name is Tim Werner Morrison, and I play the character Jango Fett in Star Wars Attack of the Clones, Episode 2. I was also privileged to play Commander Cody in Episode 3, and many of the clones that you see within the saga of Star Wars. And you're listening to This Week in Geek.
Who disrupts my coronation?
Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak! I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
What's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, and I return. That's right, guys. Evidently, I have been out the last couple of weeks. One of these was planned. One of these was not. The other time, I don't know. Either way, I was sick. I'm not dead, thankfully. I'm back. I return from the lands of beyond, but I'm not alone here on the podcast that you know, you love, and has survived for the last 14 years despite everything. I'm joined with the man in Kitchener himself.
Alex, the producer. How's it going?
It is going well today, all things considered. We are recording on a lovely Sunday afternoon here in the Kingdom of Guelph, Ontario, Canada. Rather nice day. Kind of cold, kind of nippy, but it's nice and sunny, which is kind of nice. You're seeing the weather starting to improve, which is kind of nice, because I have seen more sunrises and sunsets in the last 5 days than I've seen in the last 2 years, just because I don't get a chance to get out that much from where I currently spend most of my time, just in my kind of living room and everything. When I was in the hospital, so yeah, if you haven't been following my socials at Birdman Dodd, I was in the hospital since last Friday morning at 3 a.m., and then I got released Wednesday afternoon. So long story short is I have gallstones. However, they are not painful, but they had caused an infection in my gallbladder, which led to problems with my liver, and I've got jaundice. So I am currently fighting off something. However, my liver enzymes are slowly returning to normal. According to my wife, I'm looking a little less Simpson yellow now, which is good. I mean, even my nurse who saw me over the weekend before I left, she's like, wow, you're looking a lot better. And my doctors kept coming in every day as I kept getting stuck at like 6 o'clock in the morning for like blood work. Like, are you feeling any better? I'm like, I feel fine this entire time.
The every 4 hours getting your blood work done. Ooh.
Actually, no, it was every morning at 6:30, and on the last day, they tried to fuck me. So
you know what I think it is? When I was there for bariatrics, I guess they're so worried about after major surgery, they do it every 4 hours, and I was like, I want to sleep. They're like, no.
So what had happened to me is on the last morning, they had ordered blood work because I had to check something called my bilirubin levels or something like that. And they only took one vial. And I'm like, what's this for? Like, oh, we're checking your white blood cell count. I'm thinking, oh, no, you're not. You're checking both levels. So like, are you sure? I'm like, the doctor ordered it yesterday. Well, it's not on your sheet. I'm like, well, why don't you take that vial anyway? Let's be sure if the doctor orders it, you have it on hand. And they're like, yeah, sure. Okay, kid, whatever. So they take it. And no sooner did 11:30 come around, so just around lunchtime, like, oh, hey, Mike, we have to take some more blood. We're checking your so-and-so levels. I'm like, bullshit you are, because I already gave you that this morning. I told you this was going to happen. Fuck you. Go back to your lab. Like, yeah, he just ordered it. We know. Like, yeah, that's what I thought. You are not screwing me out of here. I am leaving. So they got that done. The doctor looked at me. He was like, Mike, do you feel fine? Yep. Well, your levels are good. They're about the same. They've twitched a little bit up and a little bit down, but you're not getting any worse. You're not in any pain. So go home. So they released me Wednesday afternoon. Getting home was a bit of a trick. Normally the hospital doesn't allow visitors, but because my wife is considered a caregiver as well, she got to drive my motorized wheelchair up onto the floor. I was actually staying 2 rooms down from where I stayed after my leg amputation. So I knew exactly where I was. I didn't see many people that I recognized. I recognized a couple nurses. I recognized a really cool nurse named Draga. She has like one of the coolest accents I've ever heard. I think she's from the Ukraine or something. Then this really cool Nigerian guy named Mike. And I'm thinking, dude, you sound like Black Panther. Which was really cool. And yeah, like everybody there was really good, except I had the world's douchiest roommate. It's just some old guy, I guess, really bitter with his life.
But did yours die?
No, he did not.
I win
die.
then.
Yes. You win by default, good sir. However, though, as my time went on there, he just kept getting progressively more grumpy. I didn't talk with him at all the entire time, which is weird, but okay, sure. Because I was on the stroke ward just because our hospital was at capacity. So one morning I'm having breakfast in the hospital, and I guess he's on the phone with somebody, and then racist tirade comes out of his mouth, and I'm thinking, oh boy, this just got a lot more interesting. So yeah, that was a fun time. But evidently at one point he called me an idiot and he didn't think that I could hear him. So a lot of people on my socials were like, you have to retaliate. You must respond in kind. I did not, because I'm a nicer person than that. And you know what? I got out. You're still there. And that's life. So what I did, I watched a lot of movies, like a lot. I saw some movies that I've never seen before. Alex had recommended to me The Dead Zone with Christopher Walken, which is one of the first big Stephen King movies. And I'd never seen that before. And that was really, really, really good.
Told you, like, it's not what you'd expect. It's not like over the top.
Yeah, it was low-key psych thriller.
And considering it's Cronenberg, so you would have figured like massive body horror, but it's one of the few he did that wasn't like that early in his career.
Yeah, I was like, this is really, really good. And I was really impressed by it. I also finally watched, it's only taken me 15 years. I watched the sequel to Get Shorty called Be Cool, because I love the Elmore Leonard novel. I love the Thing. I know there's like a TV series with like no connection to it. But I love that. I love crime thrillers, and The Rock is wonderful. The rest of the movie,
that was the consensus 15 years ago.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, I'm kind of glad I kind of slept on this, and I'm glad it's on Amazon Prime. I watched a lot of Stargate. I'm up to season 3 now. So as I prepare for our Stargate SG-1 TWIG adventures, whenever the final book gets released from Wyvern Gaming, I read a lot. Actually, a really big shout out to our friends at Free League Publishing. Just as I was going into the hospital, literally, I'm in admitting, like I'm in the ER and I've got a Wi-Fi connection. They send me all the books for Tales from the Loop, Tales from the Flood, and some other stuff, and a new game they're pitching. And they were just talking about their Lord of the Rings Kickstarter, which, by the way, was funded in about 5 minutes. They sent me all this. I was like, oh my.
Doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
It really doesn't, because the Lord of the Rings series is so hype right now with the new TV series. We reviewed the 4K box sets that came out a couple months ago. So I'm thinking, all right, that's really cool. And people obviously have a huge boner for like anything with elves and hobbits and shit. So I'm like, all right, cool. So they sent that to me, and I read Tales from the Loop. I started watching the Tales from the Loop series on Amazon. Interesting. I think that's something we may try at some point here with the Actual Play podcast here on the show. We'll see how that would go. It's very Stranger Things. So hopefully I don't rip off Stranger Things. But no, it was really,
well,
really
I mean, you'd have to watch Stranger Things to make sure.
Well, I have. That show, believe me, I
Or
love
you
Stranger-
caught? I couldn't remember if you saw season 3 or not.
No, believe me, like the second that dropped.
Oh, that's right. No, it was you didn't catch on until season 2 had finished, and then we're like, you got to watch it. Then you watched it, and then season 3 came out, and it was like full blown 80s stuff.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, this is so
And we
neat.
are supposed to be getting season 4 this year.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for that. Other than that, my week has been spent catching up on homework. I've been slowly recovering as I got home. I have to pace myself. I literally have to drink like liters of water a day to flush all the toxins out of my body. I'm talking to a dietitian and a doctor today because I luckily had the forethought before I went into the hospital. Like, parts of my weight loss, they are working and they aren't working, but I got a feeling I should talk to somebody. So fortunately, I talked to someone tomorrow. Maybe I can figure out, do I go back on certain things? Do I avoid certain things? What do I do? And I should be okay. I'm pretty optimistic about it. So I am healing. I am getting along. It just means there's more nap time. So anyway, that has been my exciting week. I should be recording with Blanchard and JT from Saskatoon sometime this week or early next. What about you, man? What have you been up to?
It's been, we had some pretty bad snow in the last little bit. Not as bad as in the States, obviously, but it was mostly a week of catching up on things. I did, as you'll see in the reviews here, I played Mario pretty extensively. I did Destruction AllStars, and if you take a look on social media, you'll see that we received a box of goodies of a bunch of different movies from Vinegar Syndrome, Fun City Editions, and the AGFA, the American Genre Film Association. So there's a lot to go through as far as these B movies and horror films, and it should be pretty exciting. So I've been slowly working my way through that stuff.
That's fantastic. Have you played anything new in the last little bit?
Yeah, Mario.
I've been watching
and more Strikers and like a bit of everything. But like as far as new stuff, Mario and playing some Destruction AllStars. That's pretty much been the week.
That's good. I myself have. I actually said this to Blair. I was talking to her on Tuesday night. I'm like, they better fucking let me out of here, because if I miss Persona, there will be blood.
I've actually been like, I started a new save and just went back from scratch, and I'm like, because I want to sort of go along as you're playing it. How far are you into it now?
I'm just halfway through the first dungeon.
That's exactly where I am. Yeah, on my new playthrough. So we're probably going to complete it roughly at the same time, seeing as once we're finished recording here, that's probably going to be the rest of my day. pretty much here. So anyway, guys, we got a lot of great stuff coming up here on the show. We have reviews of Destruction AllStars coming to us from Sony Computer Entertainment. We have a movie that has some striking similarities to Home Alone, though with a killer Santa Claus. And finally, we're going to be talking about the aforementioned Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury here up on the show. So once again, for ThisWeekInGeek.net, I've been your host, Mike the Birdman. I've been joined with Alex the Producer, and let's take things to the battle arena. This is Destruction AllStars. I want to take a minute just to quickly discuss the new Destruction AllStars game. This is something that I originally had a pre-order on for launch and before it got pushed back, and then eventually being told that it was going to be a PlayStation Plus title. And as a PlayStation Plus user, I can say right off the bat, it's well worth picking it up for free when it's available there, and just having it in your account the whole time. So hopefully you've had a chance to pick it up, and if you're somebody, not yet on the PlayStation 5 platform, it's worth just activating it so you'll have it as part of your set. Now, I'll say this before going in. I was a little skeptical when it was launching here that there wasn't necessarily going to be enough players on, as it's an open live service game where your arena brawler style just happens to be a destruction derby. Now, you've seen some reviews here and there of people saying, maybe there's not a lot of content right away. That's probably due, if anything, to COVID affecting things. in itself is fun to pick up and play for about an hour or two at a time. I've played it with my brother over PlayStation Network, and then just talking in party chat together. So as far as the destruction derby elements and the running around and some of the platforming, it's pretty solid. The frame rate seems to work, pretty good. It has the advantage of not being on the previous PlayStation 4 platform, and it just can take advantage of the net code and just the more advanced 3D graphics and lighting and everything that can be done, and the resolution scaling the PlayStation 5 offers. So it has that as a bonus to it, especially as a PlayStation Plus user. If you've already got it, in my case, you get the free games monthly, and that's one of the reasons why I have used it. But the main reason for me has always been cloud saves. And I'm not the biggest online game player, but when something like this pops up, I want to check it out. And obviously you need the PlayStation Plus to play online. And, Dodoy, as a bonus, you get this game you can play. And I've had fun playing around. They've done some pretty good polish to the balancing of the different characters. Each one has its own sort of unique personality. As far as the depth of the game, that is something that's a little lacking right now. It's enough to play maybe for a month or so with friends, and they're going to have to be including a bunch of updates, which they said they are. They're going to be slowly implementing them in, which is going to be good, because it just needs that little more to take it over the top and make it all the more, exciting and eventful. I think COVID might actually be doing a favor to this game, because those of us that have a PlayStation 5 have been clamoring for software, and this is, certainly a welcome, addition to it. I'll say this: they were very, very smart to make it a free game for PlayStation Plus, simply because I don't believe there's enough here to have hooked you in at that 89 Canadian or 79, that $60 to $80 price range might have been too much. I feel like if they had released it at retail, it would have had to have been a $50 game and not a $70 or $80 game. The people would have probably been upset with the amount of contents available and the fact that everything is locked behind. There's content gated behind microtransactions. I don't know if that would have been different had they released the game at full retail at full price. Would it have been, something where that stuff was unlocked through progression or in game? I don't know if that changed with part of their plans, but as it stands, we're of the belief that there shouldn't be a lot of content locked behind microtransactions on a full retail released game. In here, being that it's free for everybody that has PlayStation Plus, that doesn't bother me nearly as much, because you're picking up a high quality game, and it is a higher quality game than you would normally expect to be launched for free as part of a service. So I think it was a very smart move moving it to PlayStation Plus. Now, as far as if it's going to have legs, as far as standing on its own farther down the line, let's say months and months down the line, time will tell based on the amount of content that they actually produce and put into it. But so far, there's been updates to it since I've been playing. The characters are great. The presentation is just very well slick, optimized. There's a bunch of different modes to play, which are great. And it is fun to pick up just for an hour and smash into vehicles and stuff. It's pretty well put together. I just think it needs a little more to put it over that edge. But as it is, if you're a PlayStation Plus member, be sure to get it. If you're not, jump on before the end of the month, and before it might go away to being a regularly priced game. Jump on, pick it up. It's almost worth the price of getting a year's worth of PlayStation Plus anyway, because you get what would be a full retail release and then all the other bonuses that come with PlayStation Plus.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek News.
All right, folks, welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Boyd Man, joined with Alex, the producer. Got stumbled over my own words there. That's okay. We're just going to keep
recovered.
it in.
You recovered.
I did.
The Boyd Man. That's you should make a new Twitter account. That's the BO. Would it be BOI or would it be
B-O-Y apostrophe D.
Yeah.
The Void Man.
When I retire from this someday, that's what I'll make my public persona to be. Okay, so let's talk about some of the news that happened around the world this past week from the entertainment world, science, tech, whatever. We are going to talk about it today, but we're going to bring things a little bit local to me, near to a place I have some roots to, actually. This story comes courtesy of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, or CBC.ca. A St. Catharines gaming company develops Cat Colony Crisis, a video game helped to fight COVID-19. We feel it is a positive tool in the fight against COVID, says Paul Boyko says. A small gaming company based in St. Catharines, Ontario, has created a video game to help in the fight against COVID-19. Devil's Cider Games was formed in 2018 by 4 ex-schoolmates. On February 9th, they released Cat Colony Crisis, designed to promote pro-science concepts in the fight against COVID-19. The game concept is that you are overseeing a spaceship full of cats traveling from one location to another. During their travels, a pandemic happens, lead programmer Paul Boyko told CBC Hamilton. You have to observe the cats as they are going about their daily activities. They eat, they use the litter box, they sleep, they talk to each other, they fall in love, they fight with each other. So you have to observe them and see which ones are exhibiting symptoms and whether or not these symptoms are related to the disease or if they have a fur allergy, Boyko says. Once you have come to a conclusion which cats may be infected, Boyko said the person playing the game can use testing to verify whether or not they are sick. If a cat is found to be sick, contact tracing is done to see which of the other cats they've been in contact with. Those cats are then also tested, he said. You want to isolate the sick cats to avoid spreading the virus further. There's also a mask mandate you can put into effect that makes it harder for the virus to spread amongst the community. Cat Colony Crisis was developed with support from LabX, a division of the National Academy of Science, and in consultation with the members of the United States Centers for Disease Control. Cat Colony Crisis was the winner of the Jamming the Curve Game Jam event, which took place at the Indicate event in September 2020, and also won a $20,000 U.S. development grant from LabX to improve upon and then release the game. The whole concept is to reinforce the importance of concepts like social distancing, PPE, testing, contact tracing, to really sort of bring to the forefront how important it is to personally take part in doing those things, Boyko says. As the overseer, you get to see how personal responsibility is the most important part of controlling a pandemic, because all the rules and regulations don't do anything unless people actually follow them. You get to see from these cats because they're doing what they want, and you have to sort of step in and try to stop the spread. Boyko says the Colony Crisis is a fun game which can be played by anyone. It's suitable for any age group. Our target market is in the late teens to early 30s, but anyone can play it. Cat Colony Crisis is currently available for PC, Mac, Linux, Google Play, and the Apple App Store for free. We decided to make the game free because we really wanted to get it out to as many hands as possible, Boyko said. We feel that it is a positive tool in the fight against COVID-19. And then it just kind of goes on with this. This is a really neat idea, actually, and I would be hopeful to see this get ported to the Switch or another console, because I think that's just a wonderful idea. And the fact that it was developed in St. Catharines is really, really, really cool. St. Catharines is former home to the developer known as Silicon Knights, so it wouldn't surprise me if these guys were Niagara College grads or maybe from Brock University.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you wouldn't surprise you if it was Dennis Dyack, and you'd be like, no. I'm pretty sure he's done, and he burnt his bridges, and he got sued, and all that crazy stuff happened. Remember, they tried to still claim license ownership of the
Unreal Engine.
Unreal, because
they Too Human.
Yeah, their argument was that they don't have to pay a licensing fee for something they altered or something. There was weirdness, and then also, remember they were fighting to try to keep X-Men. What was it?
X-Men Destiny. Yeah.
Yeah, they tried keeping that on shelves, and then there was they basically sued everybody involved, and it was like, that's a bad move. And what's going to happen to your company? Gone.
Yeah. I actually have some Silicon Knights merchandise still that they gave me. I toured their offices back in 2008. I think I've got a t-shirt.
Was that when they were developing Too Human?
Yes, actually. So I saw some concept art. I saw a lot of really cool behind
the original idea and the original design was basically going to be Mass Effect before Mass Effect.
Yeah.
In their design. And then they changed designs so many times that they couldn't do it.
It was a neat idea, to say the very least.
Yeah, and all that goodwill. They make two of the most beloved Nintendo games of that generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
They made Twin Snakes, and then they did Eternal Darkness. And they'll be forever remembered for having two of the best games on the GameCube, and also for having pretty much the worst game of the 360 generation.
Yeah. So I think Cat Colony Crisis, it's something neat. I hope more people get into the fact that it's free. I love the fact that can increase its ability. The fact that it is playable on mobile, I think, is neat. It would be interesting to see if you could get this into an educational setting, because that's sort of the idea with it. And it's not wrong. Like, ultimately, all these guidelines and things that public health departments put in place, if you don't follow them, they're not going to work. And here in Ontario, for example, our government's messaging is confusing, to say the least, without getting too political about it.
The best description I can give for anybody without getting political is there's a meme where it says Ontario's plan, and it's just a light switch turning on and off.
Yeah, pretty much.
In an animated GIF.
Yeah, it's like, you're open, now you're closed, now you're open. Don't do this, but do this. It's okay. We're open for business.
On, off, on, off, on, off, on. It's just flicking really, really faster and faster and faster.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I'm fully expecting third wave of COVID to hit in early April.
Yeah, well, I mean, Easter.
Yeah, because
people aren't going to care.
March break got moved from in March to early April now, so it got moved by a few weeks. We'll wait and see what happens.
Here's a question. Why do you need to have March break if everybody's learning from home anyway?
Yeah, although it's in the teacher's contract, and I get that.
Yeah, and guess what? A lot of things have to change when it becomes state of emergency.
Yeah, like, obviously we're in unprecedented times right now. Actually,
I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of teachers in my family too, but it's like, how about this? You're not actually going to school to teach, so it's not the same. Like, it just isn't. And with the amount of days where kids aren't there, or you're not even doing, or schools are shut down and open and closed, you haven't had a full year where you need that break. So I'm sorry. Like, maybe you want to get paid, right? Like, because how many teachers now aren't getting paid?
Yeah, like, I know with my wife, when it comes to the supply list, it's difficult just because you don't know if the calls are coming in. Although, being a teacher during this time, you are actually doing more work because prepping online materials is so much harder. But if your classroom isn't paying attention to you, that's more difficult too. So,
well, and the last thing I'll say is, what does it matter when no kids fail anymore?
Yeah, it's going to be
like, what does it matter teaching them if there's no possibility of failure? Because I'm saying that now, not as a political statement, just as a, like, with everybody doing the way they're doing it and the kids falling behind, it's not like the government's going to say everybody has to go back a year.
I think this will be an interesting study in 5 years to see how test scores dipped.
It's going to see, well, what'll be interesting is not even so much about high school, how this majorly affects an entire generation going to university. Standards are going to have to drop because they're just not going to know the things.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, ultimately, craziness. So moving on, once again, this story comes close to home, just down the road, more or less, from blogto.com. A new Star Trek spinoff is set to start filming in Toronto this week, actually as of this recording today. A spinoff to the popular Star Trek Discovery series is set to begin filming in Toronto this week, with cast members including Lieutenant Spock actor Ethan Peck already arriving in the city. The series Star Trek Strange New World tells the story of the USS Enterprise and its crew, including Commander Captain Christopher Pike, God, that's a mouthful, First Officer Number 1, I hate that, and Lieutenant Spock in the decade leading up to the events of Star Trek, the original series. Anson Mount and Rebecca Romaine, who play Pike in Number 1 in Discovery, are set to reprise their roles alongside Peck, and they, after a fan-led social media campaign, insisted the three get their own spin-off series. The fan base stirred with excitement over the weekend after the Los Angeles-based Peck posted a snowy photo from Toronto on Instagram and responded to a fan's question about whether or not he was in town to film the new series with a simple winking emoji. Days later, Romaine confirmed her own arrival via Instagram, sharing a shot of her alongside her daughters with the CN Tower clearly visible in the background. The 10-episode series is set to begin filming on February 18th through to the end of July out of the CBS Stages Canada production facility located minutes away from Pearson International Airport. Okay, you know what? In terms of the new Star Trek properties, I'm looking forward to this one. I don't like the fact that it's tied to Discovery, but Anson Mount is probably one of the bright spots that come out of Discovery. You know what? I don't know how excited I am for this series. I mean, I think Anson Mount and Pike were the best things that come out of, Discovery, but at the same time, I don't like the feel of the universe.
It's too, what things are? Things are too narrow scoped. They're too in the moment. They're too about getting to the next action beat. And the shows have had action in them. They're just, they don't think beyond the script, if that makes any sense.
I don't see a lot of character development that doesn't feel forced and contrived. Now, this is going to make me sound really pretentious, and I really hope I really don't mean to. I've been taking a lot of writing courses over the last 6 to 8 months.
Oh, Mr. Fancy Writer knows better. But then again, looking at some of the writing I've seen on the show, I'm pretty sure kids in grade 5 can write better scripts.
Well, it's the fact that story is the character's emotional journey. Plot is what happens. And a lot of this feels it's plot with very disjointed stories. Like a really good example is there's an episode of Discovery where they talk about the cyborg lady. I don't remember her name.
Nobody does, because again, they didn't do enough of a job of introducing anybody. It's the Michael Burnham show, and it's so boring because it's just about her.
Yeah, well, the fact that Michael Burnham's character development is never consistent episode to episode bothers me too. But
not to mention that Sonique was not a good enough actress to pull off what they're trying to make her do.
I don't think she's a lead. I think she's a very good supporting.
And it's not to say that when I say that she's not a good actress, I say she's not good for that role. But the problem is, anytime anybody says anything negative about Star Trek or her in that role, you get labeled as being either toxic or racist or this or that. And it's like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the writing being poor.
Yeah, I think to get back to the point I was trying to make, they try and build a strong narrative around this character, and her story is interesting, and the plot that happens to her semi cool. Like she turns evil because she gets infected.
It's my favorite episode of that season.
Yeah, but you don't know the character because you have no emotional stakes into it. And you could argue the point that the character is interesting. You don't need to know all this, that, and the other thing. But the problem is she's been in the background for a season and a half. You should know something. That's 10 plus hours of television. You should know something.
The only argument they could make is, well, we only have 13 or 14 episodes to tell these stories, and whereas the other ones had 26. I'd be like, yeah, but if you look at those 26 episode seasons of the old shows, the main plot line of a season arc was only maybe 4 episodes.
Yeah,
and the rest were individual. So it is a different style. But if you had 15 episodes, our biggest complaint was that they tried to stretch 90 minutes of plot into like 10 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, all they had to do was dedicate 5 episodes a season as one-offs about these individual characters.
Yeah. I mean, give me a reason to care. Like I care more about Stamets because I like his character. I know more about Tilly. Actually, Tilly's got more character development, and Stamets, some of the supporting characters get more than Burnham because Burnham's stuff, again, is so inconsistent in how she behaves.
She's always angry, like angry whispering or crying. That's all she does in the entire show. And it's not an exaggeration. That's not character development. And then having music, they rely far too heavily on melodramatic music to make you try to feel a certain way instead of naturally or organically bringing you there.
Now, supposedly with Strange New Worlds, they want to return it to classic Trek where it's more one-offs, more investigative.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. And I hope it's true because you know what? If you want to get me invested in a show about the Enterprise and what happened before Kirk showed up, first off, I think that's a dumb idea. Like, you don't need it to be about the Enterprise.
Hasn't it been done 2 or 3 times now?
Yeah. Enterprise, Archer, sure.
First Contact.
But the thing that gets me is I don't like the setup. Don't get me wrong. I love Pike. And Ethan Peck he's a pretty good Spock. And
if anybody can, if they're going to have a show that focuses on a single character like they did with Burnham, and unfortunately they didn't do a very good job with Picard. Like, and I, if somebody wants to argue that they have, I would ask, I would actually want to know somebody's mentality behind why they think Picard is a good show. Because there's been so many problematic elements of it. Whereas this, the strongest part of the entire second season, which was the only season that was decent, in quotes, decent, of Discovery, was any time that Anson Mount was Pike on screen. So if you're going to focus on him, and maybe that, you know, are they going to have, I guess they're going to have the number one and him and Spock. If you make it a trifecta and it's focused on them, similar to the original show where it was Bones, Spock, and Kirk, maybe
because
it can be good.
Yeah, because you have to have a strong protagonist and you have to have good supporting characters, and those characters have to serve each other and have development over time. Make us care. Don't just do action beat after action beat to move the plot forward. Yeah, you should have stuff happen, but you also have to care for these characters should something happen to them. Like, I think one of the biggest disservices, and this may be a nitpick, and maybe you can tell me why is number one called number one? Is that just a reference to what Picard called Riker?
No, it's because of the XO.
So she has no name, just here, you are rank.
Oh, it's because in the pilot she didn't have a name.
See, that's stupid. Give her a name.
The original, in the cage and the entire pilot, and I mean, I'm sure that our friends Steve and Aaron could let us know more. But I'm reasonably sure it's because in the original script, because it was a pilot, she was just known as number one, and the whole idea behind it was to show off that yes, a woman could be in a
command position.
Yeah, it could be the XO on the ship. Right, that was a big deal for the time.
Yeah.
So I don't believe they'll probably explain it in the show. They'll want to do that little nod, but like it's the reasoning was you made a pilot in like 1963 or 1964 where a woman was the second in command or first officer on a ship, which is like, oh no, you didn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Roddenberry was like, yeah, we did. And then they're like, well, we'll bring it to series, but we can't have a woman on there. And he's like, damn it, compromise. We have to have at least one woman officer on the bridge. So that's why we got Uhura.
So I guess my kind of closing thoughts on this is if it starts filming now, hopefully we'll see a trailer by Comic-Con, because there's no way they're going to hold Comic-Con this year. Folks, give it up. It's not going to happen.
Oh, they're going to try it.
Yeah,
they're going to try. Not New York. I don't think New York's going to do it. San Diego?
San Diego shouldn't, because they've got the highest COVID cases in the country. But the U.S. vaccine rollout is going a lot quicker.
It's going to depend on a couple things. One of them being if the backlash and the hatred that they seem to be having for their governor is real and they impeach the governor, which doesn't make sense because he was just trying to protect people, then we'll see what happens. That's all going to depend on the city, the state ordinances, and all this other crazy stuff. It's going to depend on how right now they've got all those other variants over there and they're apparently all in LA.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but yeah, very, very unlikely. Or and you can't do it in Texas because Texas is ruined for the next several months.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe New Mexico. Are we trying to run it?
I don't know. I'm kind of hoping, like, in my mind, it would make more sense to focus on the animation stuff, because people like that can work from home, and voice actors, if they have access to a good studio or the studio ships them equipment to build their own,
I think we're supposed to have, I think the December, because it's always Star Trek comes out in December, usually, right? Or right in November. I think Strange New Worlds is supposed to premiere in November or December of this year, which maybe the smart move instead of 10 episodes at once might be to split it into 2. And I normally hate when they do that, but maybe why not do 5 episodes around Christmas, 5 episodes in the summer, and then we don't have these 1 year or 15-month breaks between each series.
Yeah, because we're not getting Picard for another year.
Yeah, and Discovery, they said they're doing another one. Who knows? That's like 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a question: is anybody going to care about Discovery in 2 years?
See, that the thing is, Discovery has some interesting ideas,
but
it doesn't have anything truly memorable.
These 24-month gaps, like, it's too long. The people are going to want out of their contracts. So I mean, it's I love that these shows have high budgets, or the supposedly high budgets, and they're getting these 10 episode series. But like, what they've got to do is like Paramount Plus, now that they're launching that in actually, I think this week there's supposed to be some upfronts where they're discussing what the service is going to be. If they were smart, they would say, not for Discovery, let's say Strange New Worlds. They're like, instead, it's a 10 episode first season, but you know what? We're going to greenlight 50 episodes to give it some sort of syndication. Be like, hey, yeah, we're going to get 50 episodes. We're going to film them all concurrently. But yeah, it might take 4 years to release them, or 5 years. But the problem is they're doing these 10 episode or 15 episode batches, and then you have these 15-month waits, because everybody else, they sign a contract, they're in a multi-year deal, but they're like, oh, we're only filming for 10 months, and then we have like 15 months off. I'll go film something else. And then if they even wanted to make more episodes, they can't.
Yeah.
Do the smart thing. Do it like Rick and Morty, even though we haven't had a new episode in like a year and a half. Is that what it is now? Probably close to that. Rick and Morty was renewed for 70 episodes, which is 7 years. And however long it takes, they have that money set aside. It's in a contract. We don't have to worry about something getting canceled midway through, because then they'll have to pay them out the money anyway. So I worry about some of these shows with networks getting cold feet.
Mm-hmm. So moving on to our next story. This one comes courtesy of Deadline.com. Constantine reboot in the works at HBO Max from J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot, with Guy Bolton set as writer. J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot is developing a darker reboot of DC Comics' Constantine for HBO Max, with Guy Bolton set to write. Deadline understands that Abrams' production company Bad Robot is working with the Warner Media streamer on the reboot, which will see the character as a young Londoner. We hear that Bolton has written the pilot script with plans to open up a writer's room in March.
I didn't read this, and I was hoping we were going to get more Matt Ryan.
Yeah, the character is set to be cast as a diverse lead, a departure from the one played by Matt Ryan in the NBC series, which aired for one season between 2014 and 2015. The series was developed by David Goyer and Daniel Cerrone, and similarly based on the DC Comics character John Constantine, a British exorcist and occult detective who hunts the supernatural. Ryan also appeared as the character in the CW's Arrow and a series regular in DC Legends of Tomorrow, all part of the Arrowverse. It is the latest project Bad Robot has at HBO. Last April, the streamer revealed it had greenlit Overlook, inspired by Stephen King's The Shining, Duster, and a DC Justice League Dark show.
Here's a question. Does Bad Robot have a creative bone in its body, or is it just doing rehashes of other properties?
Well, I'm interested.
I say as somebody who adamantly does not like anything they produce.
I'd be very curious to see what they're going to do with Justice League Dark, because I've only seen the movie for that. I know some of the characters. So
yeah, it's nice that we're getting more supernatural and magic stuff in.
Yeah, it's nice not to see Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. It's nice to see more occult type stuff, which I think is neat. But I really wonder what they're going to do, like what bad guys they're going to fight. Again, my knowledge for DC is remarkably weak in this regard. So I don't know. I mean, I'm excited. I'm more excited for the Green Lantern series than I am anything else.
I'd be much more interested if, as much as I think the CW shows have gone kind of downhill the last couple of years, there's been some writer stagnation, and just even the Flash, which was my favorite one, has had a rocky last couple seasons. The Berlanti stuff is really well made and really good for the source material, really exciting. I'd love to see Berlanti be able to make stuff on a streaming platform not beholden to the standards and practices and ideals of the CW. The closest would be, I think he's a producer on Stargirl, which was a DC Universe show that now got moved over to CW, and that was really well done first season. I would love to see if they could do more on there.
I hear some of the other shows that I know have done well. I haven't seen. I've heard a lot of good things about Doom Patrol, which you've told me about.
That's the best one. As there's Legends of Tomorrow, which is goofy like Doctor Who. Doom Patrol is the most quirky, out there, crazy thing you'd ever imagine. That is worth watching, and it's moved over now, I think, to HBO, and it's like the X-Men, but predates the X-Men, I believe, in publication time. So Brendan Fraser plays Robot Man, a NASCAR driver who got in a crash and had his brain put in a robot body designed in the 1950s. You have the equivalent of what you'd think would be the Invisible Man covered in bandages, but in fact he was a test pilot that an alien entity soul entered his body and he got burned up with radiation, but the alien keeps him alive. So they share a body, and he covers himself up in bandages. You have a former, like, 1930s Hollywood starlet who was obsessed with her looks, who, while filming something like the African Queen type movie, comes in contact with some weird plant under the water that turns her into a creature that can melt into, like, goopy, like, think like Clayface. You then have a character that has like a bazillion different personalities, like personality disorder, and each individual personality has its own superpower. So it's like a chaotic sort of person. And then you also have James Bond himself, Timothy Dalton, playing the Professor X type character who's like super old and doesn't age because of some magic. And some of they're friends with a sentient street, like an actual, like, buildings and road and street that can teleport and house all of their friends, which are like outcasts from society, like circus performers and different things. They have a friend, what's his name? Something Metallo, something or other. He is a 1950s muscle bound guy, like you see in those comic books where they show like the guy working out to be really strong. Flex. I think it's Flex Metallo, something. He can flex a muscle and cause an earthquake.
Interesting. Yeah.
Or twitch a different muscle and give everybody in the vicinity an orgasm, which he does.
Okay. Well,
yes, it is out there. It is ridiculous, and it is super fun. And that's the kind of thing you can do on a streaming platform that you can't do on regular TV.
So hopefully we'll see. Hopefully we'll see a good Constantine series. I've got optimistic.
Exactly. If it's HBO, and as much as I don't like Bad Robot, I think being on that platform, they're unrestricted by the traditional norms of what they have to do on basic TV.
Yeah. So moving on to our next story here, kind of sticking with the comic book theme. This one comes courtesy of comicbook.com. Marvel Studios gets The Punisher and Jessica Jones rights back from Netflix. The live-action rights to Jessica Jones and The Punisher have reverted back to Marvel Studios after a multi-year tenure with Netflix. The characters were subject of tremendously popular shows along with Daredevil, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage. When Disney had revealed plans to launch their own streaming service which would rival Netflix canceled all their Marvel titles in a move which shocked fans of the successful properties. The rights to the characters remained with Netflix for 2 years after they were canceled, and that window is now officially closed, meaning Jessica Jones and The Punisher are now eligible to be used by Marvel Studios. With Jessica Jones and The Punisher having been the last shows to be canceled by Netflix, this now means all the Marvel characters which were licensed to Netflix have now reverted their rights to Disney.
You know what I think this is going to mean? They're not going to give the same actors back again.
There are rumors because Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil, was spotted on the Spider-Man 3 set.
Well, that's going to be multiverse stuff. What we're going to see is that'll be somebody from the Netflix universe. They're going to do some tongue-in-cheek stuff there. What I could see, what we're going to now, you'll probably see him, and you'll probably see Ben Affleck. You know, like they're going to do some weird stuff. But what I wouldn't be surprised is if they, not necessarily MCU, maybe they do, or maybe they want to keep these people for the ground-based teams and stuff on Disney Plus.
It would make sense to
introduce him with. We'll put him with the Blade movie.
Actually, what I would do if I was Disney, I would get Kristen Ritter back as Jessica Jones. I would put her in She-Hulk because She-Hulk is a lawyer. And this way, if you want to bring back Charlie Cox,
they just cast She-Hulk.
Yeah, no, I'm saying she still plays Jessica Jones.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So if you want to extend that universe, you can do that. And if you want to have Charlie Cox as Daredevil exist in that universe too, you could have he shows up in like a Rolodex where he goes by the Nelson and Murdoch offices. And this way those characters can exist in that universe. You don't have to use them, but you've now established, okay, if they're here. And if you want to get John Bernthal as the Punisher, you can do that too, which I think would be really smart of Marvel because those castings were fantastic. Say with Mike Coulter as Luke Cage.
What I would like is, now that they've cast Blade, and I wouldn't be surprised if they put Wesley Snipes in again, because they're doing this whole multiverse breaking thing. And we know, if you've been keeping up with what's going on WandaVision, it's like, wow, they've opened the floodgates for anything, right? Mm-hmm. So what I could see happening is what if they sent the Punisher after Blade?
Well, I know they've worked together in the comics.
You know what I mean? Like have him think that he's the bad guy. You know, it's one of those, you know, they're against each other and then they end up having to team up sort of thing.
I think it would make more sense to maybe reference the Punisher in She-Hulk, or maybe actually, I just had this thought now. We don't know who the bad guy is supposed to be in Hawkeye. So yeah,
it could literally be like all
anybody.
we have to. How we'll know is if they make a reference that Hawkeye's going after one of the crime families that the Punisher went after.
Yeah, I mean,
all you have to do is, you know, have him, you know, in one of the episodes go after somebody in Hawkeye and he kills, you know, the Yakuza Italian mob, blah blah, and then have it in the newspaper that just he's watching TV in the background, or it just says the so-and-so family slaughtered yesterday, no known leads, and have him just sort of look at it like what's going on, and then, you know, it's just in the background that the Punisher's doing these things.
Yeah, like there's so many possibilities with Marvel having all their characters finally back under one roof. The sky's literally the limit now.
Even Spider-Man, which is crazy, but it's yes and no. Sony's going to keep onto that forever if they can.
Yeah, and they're smart too. I mean, you're never going to see Venom cross over into Hawkeye or something, but they would reference events that have happened, because Spider-Man Far From Home is pretty integral to the MCU because it sets up Secret Invasion and Skrulls, and it's, in fact, there's connections to WandaVision.
I'm still hyped about what they're going to do with that ending.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's revealed who he is, and he's just like, oh, and then it just cuts out. And now we have to wait 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, like Marvel, I think, has done a wonderful job interconnecting its properties. There's a through line, like there's a series Bible, which I assure you has to be signed out by biometrics, eyes only, with a security guard for you to even look at it, at Disney headquarters right now, that plots the next 10 years. And I can already tell you who the next bad guy is going to be, the next Thanos level threat. I can already tell you who it's going to be. I think it's going to be Kang the Conqueror, because I think they've already said he's going to be the bad guy in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Well, maybe, like, I know my former roommate and I have been discussing, because he's like, he owns, his big thing is all of the Marvel Magic comics. Stuff that had been, you know, basically denied for so long. And after we watched WandaVision, the first thing he says to me is, was it Dark Tome or something, the book that was in there. He's like, I know exactly what's happening. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, he figured out who she was and yada yada yada. And people are thinking it's Mephisto. He goes, I'm thinking it's something else. I forget who he was saying, but
he's probably Nightmare, I think, is one of the big leading theories.
He's listening. He goes, all right. He goes, I can tell you right now. He goes, how they're connecting it with the multiverse shattering. He goes, what they just found at the end in her basement is the nexus to all things, or whatever they call that, where it's like, and he goes, that particular book, he goes, that's the book. And I forget the name of the person that created the book. He's like, that's basically the equivalent of the biggest book of evil of all time.
Yeah.
In their universe.
And I think
it's where all dark
Lords.
He said it's where all dark evil magic comes from, is that book. So he's like, that's where they're going. And he goes, and that makes sense if it's multiverse madness. Is like that you could, as far as like some of the bad guys were, like, you could pick for Doctor Strange, it's like, why not pick the one that's the most dangerous to all of them?
Yeah, the rumor for Doctor Strange, it'll be Mephisto, Shumara, Gorath. They've already done Dormammu. It could be one of the Marvel Fear Lords. It could be Nightmare. Like, regardless, it's going to be a very nice companion piece. And WandaVision is pretty much essential. If you want to understand what's happening in Phase 4, you need to have seen this now, which is really wonderful, because so many people years ago wrote this series off as being nothing.
It's Darkhold, I think it's what it's called.
Now,
Pages from the Book of Sins.
Now, this is something me and JT are going to be talking about. And Alex, you're welcome to join us on TWIG Sunday Funnies when WandaVision wraps up. We're going to actually, I guess I'll just make this announcement. Me and JT have been talking about this for a few months. We're going to do a Marvel podcast as part of TWIG Sunday Funnies, where we just talk about the Marvel phases in the individual movies and just, it's one movie, 1 month, once a month, and looking at things, because the Disney properties have done such a fantastic job, as I mentioned previously, as maintaining a fairly consistent through line. Some entries are weaker than others, which, is to be expected over 23 plus movies, but it all functions as a whole. And Marvel they're really holding all the cards. I'm really curious to see how Shang-Chi and the Eternals is going to tie into all this, because they're the two properties I'm the least excited about.
Sorry, I looked it up. It's Chthon is the guy that created that book.
Okay.
So, and it's basically the elder by an elder chaotic evil god, which might make sense if they want to go a little Cthulhu-esque in multiverse.
Yeah, so we will wait and see. The WandaVision finale is coming up in 2 weeks. The penultimate episode is this week, and we'll wait and see. So moving on to our next story. This one comes courtesy of superherohype.com. Tim Burton will direct a Wednesday Addams live-action series for Netflix.
You. I'm done with Tim Burton.
Last fall, word broke that Tim Burton was developing a new take on the Addams Family for television. Now, the project is officially going forward at Netflix. However, only one member of the famously macabre family will be featured. Netflix has announced that Burton will direct and executive produce Wednesday, a new live-action series that puts the spotlight on Wednesday Addams. Al Gough and Miles Millar will be the showrunners on the series. Gough and Millar previously developed Smallville for the WV and created Into the Badlands for AMC, which was a pretty cool series. Series will follow Wednesday as a young adult while attending Nevermore Academy. However, there may be plans for her family to appear. The premise for the series involves a mystery that dates back 25 years. Here's the official description from Netflix. The series is a sleuthing, supernaturally infused mystery charting Wednesday Addams' years as a student at Nevermore Academy. Wednesday's attempts to master her emerging psychic ability, thwart a monstrous killing spree that has terrorized the local town, and solve the supernatural mystery that embroiled her parents 25 years ago, all while navigating her new and very tangled relationships at Nevermore. MGM / United Artists Television will produce the series for Netflix. It basically sounds like Sabrina, but with Wednesday Addams.
I have zero interest. Tim Burton has been so one note for the last 15 years. It's not even funny.
I'm curious. Like, I'll give the pilot a chance.
I'll do that. But I mean, it used to be that his style was cool and unique, and now it's become that's all you can do.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Burton has a very distinctive directing style, and I liked a lot of his early stuff, like pre-2000s, but I haven't liked anything post-2000s.
He's not good with anything with CG. He's an artist, and he worked for Disney. He has a vision. He just doesn't know how to make CG look good.
I think because this is supposedly more kind of character-driven, maybe it'll be kind of quirky and kind of weird.
If it's more grounded in the Addams Family or Edward Scissorhands style, sure.
Yeah,
could be really good.
Yeah, like I kind of picture this in the vein of Riverdale, but almost parody in that regard. Like I see this like the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which I'm okay with.
Riverdale, if he makes it like a creepy like Riverdale meets Edward Scissorhands meets Pleasantville, that's cool.
Yeah, like that sounds interesting to me. So we'll see what happens. My guess is we won't see this for at least 2 years.
Probably.
So that's okay. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, go Tim Burton if you think you can pull it off. Cool. Netflix doesn't often greenlight shit. We'll see. And final story this week. This one comes courtesy of BloodyDisgusting.com. Konami is reportedly open to outsourcing Metal Gear and Castlevania IP to third-party developers. So it seems Konami's big three aren't as dead and buried as feared. Silent Hill, Metal Gear, and Castlevania could all live again. And no, we don't mean in pachinko form. Yesterday, during the latest tidbits surrounding a potential Silent Hill project from the Bloober team, it became clear that Konami has become more receptive to handing off its IPs to outside sources. And over at VGC, multiple additional sources have added that story to give more details onto what that is and what company plans to do. It seems that Konami has been previously adverse to outsourcing its IP with a pitch by Supermassive Games Until Dawn, The Dark Pictures, for a Silent Hill game that became the Dark Pictures. Among those rejected, that was until in-house projects such as Metal Gear Survive and Contra Hardcore performed poorly, causing Konami to reevaluate its stance. That seems to have led to 2 reported Silent Hill projects on the horizon, with Metal Gear and Castlevania on the table for other studios to pitch for. Any potential project involving those would apparently be quite a ways off, so we'll be in for more years of anguish waiting. So it's still nice to hear positive things about Konami's gaming aspirations rather than talk of canceled projects and pachinko machine jokes. Let's hope they finally see the start of reality with a Silent Hill game reveal sooner rather than later. And I seem to remember there were rumors floating around at one point that Sony was going to make a bid for the IPs.
There was a rumor at one point that Sony was going to make a bid for both. And then there was one that at one point Square Enix was maybe in a bid for at least one of them. I would have assumed that would have been for Metal Gear. But you never know. It does seem like a bigger fit for Sony themselves. But it could have also been a case where they may have been saying Square was interested just to see what Sony would say.
I mean, ultimately, if I was Sony, I would go after the Metal Gear IP because it's so associated with the PlayStation brand, because Metal Gear was the PlayStation 1 era.
Like, you know who should go after, From Software should go after Silent Hill.
Actually, From Software, I wouldn't mind seeing a Castlevania game.
You know what I would love to see? Because they've only done remakes so far. What if Blue Point did a Silent Hill from the ground up?
Yeah.
Really see what their chops are like. Because, I mean, they know how to do a Gothic remake, right? With Demon's Souls.
Like, I don't know. Like, if I had, like, here's what I would do. If you want to see how well their old gaming properties would sell, I would re-release everything, because they still sell the collections on Xbox Live and everything. Tell them for $100, for example, and I'm just throwing that number out there because we know prices of PlayStation 5 games have gone up. We're going to release all the Metal Gears, including Twin Snakes, on the PlayStation 5.
Find a way to make the content work for the portables, like they did with
Peace Walker and Acid and all that.
And whatever didn't work. Remember Kingdom Hearts?
Yep.
They did the all-in-one collection and the 1.5, 2.5, yada yada. Whatever didn't work, they took all the cinematics and made into a video, or found a way to interactively tell a story for things that were like cell phone games and that.
Yeah, so if Sony were to do that, I think that would be good, especially if, like I said, if they offered it up at a reasonable price point. It would show there's still interest in the IP, and then Sony and Konami or whoever can make a reasonable pitch. That would sell. If you also told me, hey, we're redoing Silent Hill from the ground up as a remaster, I think that would sell tremendously well, because we saw how positive the response was to Silent Hill PT a couple years ago when that got shit-canned. And that was one of the most inventive things I'd ever played. That was one of the games I ever played.
Out of the ashes of that, we ended up with Death Stranding.
Yeah, so there's not unreasonable possibilities for us to see really, really, really cool shit. So that's pretty much going to do it for the news this week here on the show. As always, we do welcome your input. So if you have any news stories to submit to us, you can do that at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Me and Alex do both get those emails. We do look forward to hearing from you. So we're going to take a small break here on the show. We're going to take a look at a movie from, I think, Vinegar Syndrome. And this is a movie that shares some really weird similarities to Home Alone, but with blood. So we'll be back, guys, right after this.
Our friends of Vinegar Syndrome sent over a new 4K Ultra HD release that they have of Dial Code Santa Claus, also known as 3615 Code Père Noël, which and Deadly Games, I guess. Multiple titles. Very interesting title in that it appears that Home Alone might have been inspired by this. That's sort of been the rumor for years. So here's the basic background on it. Thomas is obsessed with action movies and video games, so much so that when his mother is out, he delights in turning the sprawling mansion where he and his grandfather live into makeshift battleground.
They make traps, and just like almost like think like a home fort on steroids. And they're alone. Christmas Eve, they see a Santa Claus, department store Santa Claus, sort of like he's like a mental patient, escaped crazy person, breaks into the house, and then he decides to go on he has to escape him from murdering and then also setting up deadly traps to hurt and kill Santa Claus. It's way over the top, ridiculous action. It's just I can't really describe it other than what if Home Alone was R-rated is probably the best way to put it. Super high quality cinematography, very surprising. Now it's got I believe it's the first time it may have been released on disc in North America. It's got a brand new 4K restoration from the original 35mm. It looks amazing in Ultra 4K. It's kind of funny that we're now at the point where we're getting some of these B-movie genre titles in these pristine, immaculate remastered editions. So the movie's from 1989, but it looks like it could have been filmed today. So it has full HDR, so my TV, popped up with really good tone mapping for all the colors. There's an interview with the director on here, an interview with an actor. These are long too. Like the interview with the director is like 90 minutes long. Interview with the actors 40 minutes. Stills gallery, and instead of just being a boring stills gallery, what I found really interesting was it also had a director's commentary over the stills gallery to describe all the photos, which is something you don't usually see in most releases. Storyboards. There's behind the scenes featurette, which is about 8 minutes or so. A short film shot by one of the producers and directors that's 5 minutes long. Trailer model shots, a music video for Merry Christmas from Bonnie Tyler, which was used in the movie. There's French, English, and Italian versions of the trailers. French teaser trailer, reversible art, which is a standard with all Vinegar Syndrome releases. And also included is a DVD copy. So it's pretty cool that there's just everything you could want in there. It has an MSRP of about $35 depending on when you get it. There's a limited edition with a slip cover. Then there's a standard edition as well with just a regular box art. And you can order it from Vinegar Syndrome, or you can probably pick it up on Amazon if you find it on there. It's going to be staying on my movie shelf for quite some time, and it might become one of my go-to Christmas movies that I pop in every year along with the Bad Santa movies, as making like a R-rated Christmas trifecta of sorts. But definitely worth checking out. I had heard of it in the past, but I'd never actually seen it, and now we get to see it in pristine 4K.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
All right, well, welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, joined with my wonderful co-host, Alex the Producer. Well, it's time to talk about the strange, unusual, and most fucked up things that happened on the planet this past week. And weird news that I just found out myself. I just saw this on Twitter, but evidently this has been around for like 6 months or longer. There's a grocery store chain here in Canada called No Frills. They have entire albums on Spotify with singles.
They've been putting out their flyers since COVID hit have been comic book strips.
They have a really interesting
with superheroes and like literally superheroes, and all their commercials on TV are superhero people and like getting you savings, and not like goofy, like full on comic books. And they're owned by the Loblaw Corporation, which owns Zayres. They're like the two big companies that own basically all grocery stores that aren't independent are Sobeys and Loblaws, and it's part of the Loblaw Corporate. They're considered their discount store, but they've been putting out like the coolest, weirdest stuff.
Yeah, it was just so weird. I was actually listening to some of their tracks on Spotify, which I think it's called a 88-cent sale is a surprisingly catchy one, and Holland State of Mind or something like that. Or I'm like, this is really kind of good.
I was just there shopping, getting essentials. They have regular sized carts, they have the small carts, and they have a cart that says the hauling cart, and it's like one of those Costco ones but double the length.
Oh geez. Well, go get them no frills. So if you're really interested, look them up on Spotify. The top result is a song called Bananas, and that's a thing. So that's something that I found out just before the show today. All right, so moving on to the actual weird news that happened around the planet this week. This one comes courtesy of OregonLive.com. Researchers find pirate skeletons, shipwreck, and treasure off the coast of Cape Cod. One-Eyed Willie, is that you? An 18th century ship which sank off the coast of Cape Cod was found to have at least 6 pirate skeletons still aboard. The Boston Globe reports how the wreck is the remains of a ship named the Wadaya, which went beneath the waves near the New England town of Wellfleet in the 1700s. Although the ship itself was discovered in 1984, these skeletons are a recent development in the research behind the ship's story. Commanded by pirate Sam Bellamy, the Wadaya was wrecked off the Wallfleet in 1717, taking with her the treasure of 50 plundered ships, explains the Wadaya Pirate Museum's website. The establishment that made the discovery, according to Cape folklore, Bellamy was returning to his love, Maria Hallett, the Witch of Wellfleet, when his ship met with disaster in one of the worst storms to strike the eastern seaboard. Now, Bellamy, his crew, and their booty, which includes weapons, clothing, and of course jewelry, are being researched by the team at the Wadaya Pirate Museum to see what kinds of treasures of history they find. However, apart from potentially learning more about the lifestyle of a scallywag during this point in time, the team at the museum are hoping, hold on, I lost my place. The team at the museum are hoping to use their research to find any of the pirates' potential bloodlines. We hope that modern cutting-edge technology will help identify these pirates and reunite them with any descendants who could be out there, states the museum's underwater explorer, Barry Clifford. Now, the big question is, should these descendants be found, do they technically have rights to inherit the Bellamy's treasure? Only one could only hope. In my opinion, no, because if they're pirates, this is stolen stuff. But then again, who does it belong to? And you're not probably going to find any identifying marks on them. I mean, it's possible. I mean, honestly, the stuff should go to the museum or stay with maybe the Smithsonian, maybe?
Yes. It depends on how far back it is, if there's any claims to it, like if they can legally.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be really cool if they found people who are living descendants, like, hey, we found your cousin and they're pirates. I think that'd be cool because that would be interesting for the local museum. If anything, it's a funny story.
Wasn't there a Simpsons story from the early 90s? I say that as they have like a million episodes, where didn't Abe Simpson and his troops steal a bunch of Nazi paintings or something?
Yeah, and then it was found to belong to the Nazi or some German guys.
They were going to return them, and they thought it was like Jewish paintings and art and architecture and all. And no, it was some rich snobby German guy that didn't even carry through it in the back of his race car and drove away.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. He's like, "Oh, get out of the room, you two!" And then he just away.
Cranks it up and drives away, and you're like, well, that's not who we wanted to actually give it back to. We thought it was going to go to people that were poor and needed it. And it was some rich dude that had it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's tremendously interesting, especially if they're able to recover enough DNA out of these ancient bones. But then again, like you have to wonder what salt water will do over the centuries. Literally, these bones were down there.
The marrow would be gone. It would just depend on, and bones are just...
They're just calcium.
Strands of hair might survive, because I know strands of hair you can get DNA off of even way later, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if anything, would it be the hair, and maybe out of like a femur? Something, it would have to be like a thick piece of bone.
Yeah, like
to get something out of.
So I don't know. I mean, it'd be interesting if they found them through like one of those sites like Ancestry.com.
What if you found out it was one of your relatives?
I think that'd be pretty cool, honestly. I mean,
that you're related to a pirate.
I know I'm related to some big Scottish clansmen. And I like evidently the side of my family that I come from, the Campbell side, I think it is. Evidently, we had our own version of the Red Wedding, where we invited our enemies to a ceasefire and then we murdered them.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm not to be trusted.
Well, I mean, we already knew that.
Well, of course. But yeah, I found that interesting when I was talking to my sister Katie, who does all the genealogy for the family.
Still weird hearing you say all that stuff.
I know, right? Like 39 years.
My side of the family, which one? The Campbell, the who side? The father side? The sister? The what side?
So yeah,
but that is so positively you though. You find your family and you find out they're all a bunch of scallywag, murderous pirates.
Scallywag, murderous pirates in kilts. All right, so this next story comes courtesy of metalinjection.net. Twitch cuts off Metallica's audio at BlizzCon due to copyright, replaces it with 8-bit folk music.
Wait. Did they get copyright flagged with their own music?
Yes. So the state of music streaming
so wait, Metallica, kings of you gotta pay.
Yeah.
Got in trouble because they played their own music.
Yep.
Because of an algorithm ultimately brought about because of their own campaigning in 1999 and 2000.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So the article goes on to say the state of music streaming in 2021. Metallica was performing at BlizzCon yesterday, which was a couple days ago, which was an all virtual event streamed on Twitch's on the Twitch gaming channel, and Twitch eventually faded out of the performance out of DMCA copyright fears. The news was first reported by esports analyst Rod Slasher Breslow, who himself was afraid to post a full clip out of fear of getting his own copyright strike. His tweet reads, "The current state of Twitch. The official Twitch gaming channel cut off the live Metallica concert to play 8-bit folk music to avoid DMCA. A longer version posted by another user moments into performing For Whom the Bell Tolls, the audio is faded to some 8-bit folk music."
Which I saw people reacting to the whole Twitch con stuff. Metallica came on, and first of all, any streamer had to just turn off their feed entirely because they're like, it's the worst band to get copyright flagged on, period. And secondly, they're like, a lot of people are like, what do they have to do with Blizzard?
Yeah, I guess they just decided, hey,
to spend stupid amounts of money to get them. Like, I like the band, but what do they have to do with World of Warcraft?
Or Diablo or whatever.
Like, unless they have a song in it, like, unless they're just, which bands can do, right? Make a song for something. Unless they're doing that, this was just a flex to show off, hey, we've got this.
Metallica.
We got Metallica, and we watch our stream. And here's another question: 90% of the people that play their games now are little kids. How many of them know Metallica or care? They're going to see a bunch of guys that are like 60.
So the article goes on to say Twitch's dealings with DMCA copyrights have been heavily criticized by users. A few months ago, Dragon Force guitarist Herman Lee got his channel temporarily removed for playing songs from his own band. A full version of the performance not being cut off has made its way to YouTube. Some fans pointed out the irony that DMCA laws and copyright laws are currently what they are because of Metallica's fight with Napster 20 years ago. We still ultimately believe Metallica had a point at the time. They just perhaps went about it the wrong way.
They did. It's not even a boomer thing. It's a complete ignorance on how things were going to shape and work thing. Because the bands that had it probably the most right, if this sounds weird, but Limp Bizkit was one of the bands that came out and said, yeah, you can share our music because it's at that time you couldn't share CD quality audio. It was all MP3s. Mm-hmm. The argument was it's free advertising for us. And then the other ones that said, hey, yeah, why don't we just release a few songs for free? And then if somebody wants to buy the rest of the album, they come buy the album. And the recording industry was like, no, we're never going to allow that. And look what it is. How many times can you go to iTunes now and get a free song to sample before you buy the album? How many, or how about this? The biggest fear of the recording industry in America happened. Spotify.
Yeah.
A subscription service where they get almost nothing from it.
Yeah, and it sucks for some artists that stream on Spotify because they don't get a lot of revenue.
No, and they rely on ticket sales, which doesn't exist right now. So all you can hope for is go listen to a band, go to their website, pick up some of their merch. Because that'll go right to them. Or when a band, I'll listen to music on Spotify, and then I'm the guy that goes up and buys the LP, or I'm the guy that goes out and buys the Blu-ray audio when they have surround sound. I'll pay $30 for something I want to support that I know goes, and I try to buy it directly from the band's website.
And it's like, that's how you're going to get your money, because I'm going to get to listen to your music for free or part of my $9.99 a month subscription service. But if I want to listen in really good quality and I want to support a band and I can't go see them in person, the best thing you can do is drop $20 on them on their website.
Yeah, like I, for example, buy anything the Megas put out. I buy anything the Proto Men put out.
Yeah, you go right to their Bandcamp sites or whatever.
Yeah, and they had a thing last week, I think it was, or the week before last. So like, this song was on the Mega Man 25th anniversary album, which was pulled from Spotify. We're making it available for 24 hours and then it's never going to be released again. If you want it, it's $1. So of course I spent the $1, or it's pay what you want.
Yeah, and if they're lucky, and they get a lot of fans, they might get $20,000 out of that.
Yeah, so good for them. Another thing, as you mentioned, like you can support artists via their Bandcamp. Some artists have Patreon and Kickstarters for various projects.
Some of them are doing, like, if they're a smaller band or even a medium-sized band, some of them, what they're doing is you join like a Patreon, right? And then weekly they'll do a 1-hour show out of like their home studios.
Yeah.
And for like, basically it's a way of having a more intimate one-on-one or close to one-on-one session with your favorite band. And, you throw, especially if it's a struggling artist, let's say the group was starting to get big before the pandemic hit, and like they were hit locally and they were starting to tour and, they were, living in their van sort of thing. Well, now they can at least still make, a weekly gig out of having Patreon.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully things are going to improve in the music industry. I think the fact that Metallica playing 8-bit folk is kind of funny. So we have that.
I mean, they did that Lulu album, so that doesn't surprise me that they're doing weird, stupid shit.
All right, so our last story this week comes courtesy of WCRZ.com. And a Michigan man is wanted by police after pooping in unlocked cars. Police in Warren are looking for a man being dubbed the serial pooper. Just take a second to let that last sentence sink in. This sounds like a joke, but it's very real. And Warren police are looking for the man after he was caught on camera twice. Security footage shows the serial pooper checking to see if the victim's car is locked. Once he's able to open the door, he promptly drops trowel and does his business inside the car.
Okay.
Imagine being the poor owner of these cars. You climb into your car like normal, and I'm guessing that smell would be the first sign something is not right. If for some reason you miss the smell, there's no way you're missing the dookie sitting on the floor of your car. Police don't have any leads as to who the serial pooper might be, so they're asking for help. The only thing they have is that the two incidents had in common is they both happened outside of a car service centers. Both incidents also happened after midnight, but that's not very much for police to go on. I don't know if there's a special unit to investigate fecal crimes, but
was it New York or Toronto that had the subway pooper?
There was Toronto had a guy at Ryerson University who was attacking people with buckets of poop.
Oh, he was the bucket pooper, yes. And wasn't he caught on the subway?
I think they caught him at Ryerson, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, they caught him and they tackled him. I think he had his day.
I wouldn't. Oh, yes, I said I wouldn't want to be the guy tackling him when he still held the bucket.
Ew.
They never did explain what that was about, but quite obviously it was mental illness.
Yeah, I mean or somebody trying to do something jackassy, which
no. But even then,
that's assault.
in Jackass, they weren't doing it to random people.
They might do a harmless prank, but not.
If you want to poop in a bucket and throw it on your friends for a Jackass video, you want to be stupid like that, go ahead. They weren't going onto public property and doing it to citizens.
Yeah, they weren't doing it to ordinary people. So the article finally finishes up saying, I don't know if there's a special unit to investigate fecal crimes, but I smell a TNT series coming to Law & Order SV Poop, or maybe not. If there's a bright side to this story, in both cases, the service cameras took care of the mess inside the people's cars. Warren police are asking you to call with any information you may have to the identity of the serial pooper. There might be a way to do it, but it almost seems unlikely. You could extract DNA from it if you took it to a lab, but this is just this is just a crime of idiocy.
Can you get DNA from that? Because it goes through the system, it doesn't actually.
If there's blood in it.
Yeah, if there's some if you had a hard one.
But still, I mean, obviously this person is an idiot. I mean, on one hand, it's kind of funny. Now, there was another story this week involving poop, but we didn't cover it this week. And I just saw the headline, but I didn't get a chance to read into the story. A woman in an outhouse was pooping and she got bit on the ass by a bear after she shit on the bear. So
yeah. Okay.
So yeah, evidently it's a big week for poop. So yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have any information, if you happen to live near this area, let them know. Or if you are this local pooper, please stop. The world doesn't need this. I mean, 2021 has already been pretty weird.
Yeah.
I have hopefully this year will not end up as screwed up as last year. You know what? I'd be happy if it stayed relatively normal with odd things happening, but nothing dangerous. I mean, I know the other day for weird news, somebody's house had falling airplane wreckage and it just missed them.
Yeah, I didn't really want to talk about that because it was too scary.
Yeah, like, and it's funny. I used to make a joke for years. I'm like, may I be struck by falling airplane wreckage? And then it happens.
Well, you say that, and then like that was right around the time that Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah, I forgot where like the plane blows up. Yeah. So yikes. Anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of the Weird News. Hopefully you have enjoyed joining us for this. And again, if you have any fucked up stories or know of anything local going on to you that might fit our criteria for strange and unusual or just kind of cool, once again, feedback at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can also tweet us at ThisWeekInGeek. Alex and I will usually pick up the message from there. So we're going to take a small break here on the show as we begin to close things out. We're going to take a look at the Nintendo Switch and their latest Mario release, a port of a Wii U game that was isolated for years. We were taking a look at Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury. We'll be back, guys, right after this.
Our friends at Nintendo sent over a review copy digitally for Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. I've been playing it now for about a week, and I had not... Well, okay, I say this. I have played Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U, but on my brother's, I beat the first world, and that was years ago, and I never got back to doing it because we ended up moving our separate ways, and he ended up selling his Wii U, and I had thought, well, maybe it'll eventually come up. It was actually one of the few titles that I had considered buying a used Wii U for just to play. But then when all these games started being ported over with more enhanced or better editions on the Switch, I went, that's probably going to come. And then when it was announced, I went, yes, and hopefully I would get a chance to check it out. Well, they sent over a copy, and I blasted through the main game. I pulled myself like a weekend marathon and did like one full day of like basically just playing the game to beat the main game. Basically every level in the main worlds to the boss of the game, plus all the extras, collecting all the green coins, as well as the stamp collection for every single level. And then I find out that there's not just like an extra world, there's multiple extra worlds after, and I'm like, these are way harder. So those are going to take some time. I did end up playing some online with a couple friends, playing both in my game and theirs, and the network connectivity worked quite well. I did play in docked mode with a USB to Ethernet adapter, so my internet connection was dedicated and had no dropouts or anything there. Your mileage will vary depending on your Wi-Fi or wired internet status. As far as what's different in the game, from what I can remember, and I think it was confirmed, you move a little faster in this. Like they've made the walking speed and running speed a little faster, which makes the game run a little smoother. It can create some hiccups and issues. When I noticed in some of the later levels where you're supposed to be running and like jumping and platforming over lava, sometimes you can move a little faster than you would want to. So keep that in mind. You have to ease off of the analog stick a little bit. So some of the later levels can be a little tricky, but other than that, it's just a very solid port. Some graphical glitches maybe here and there aside, it performs quite well. And as far as digital goes, like the file size, it's only 2.8 gigs, so it's not gonna take up way too much space on your drive, on your SD card either. But the original Wii U version was like 4.5 gigs. So if you compare those, they actually shrunk the game down and included basically a whole other game with Bowser's Fury. And Bowser's Fury plays like an open world Mario, where it's like one big world with multiple smaller levels within it that you don't have to like open up levels for or travel into through paintings or shines or anything like that. So it's good. It does struggle frame rate wise when there's crazy stuff going on in dock mode, in handheld mode. Dock mode, it doesn't. I feel like everybody's saying that this should be the future of how Mario goes with the next 3D Mario games. I don't necessarily think so. You're going to have to mitigate your video fidelity expectations in that Mario Odyssey is a way more advanced engine than this. I don't think a game with that visual fidelity could handle on the Switch the way it is. Or you could do it and make the world like as big as it is on Bowser's Fury, but then what you do is you have multiple worlds of that size. So when you go to World 3 or World 2 or whatever, each world is an open world. So not just one gigantic map for the entire game. That would be a little too much to handle. But if you made it so that like World 1 is the sand world and the whole world levels are basically splayed open on the map, that could be really exciting for a future game. I don't know if they'll do it for the next, main iteration beyond Odyssey, or if that's the path they should choose to go through with the new in quotes series, which is the more traditional Mario style. I think that would be pretty sweet. I had a great time with it, beating Bowser's Fury several hours in. I think it was probably about 4 or 5 hours I've spent in there, and then I can unlock more things to do afterwards. And then there's apparently some little tricks you can do to make Bowser appear more frequently or at your own interval that you want to. There's probably some other secrets and stuff I need to find in there, but it's a solid package. Alone, at the $80 Canadian price point, I don't know if it would have justified having new Super Mario or Super Mario 3D World released at that price. Maybe it would have been asking a little bit much, but then again, not a lot of people had the Wii U, so people are happy just to get that. But the fact that they're including what's basically almost an entirely new full game, it's a little shorter than what a full game would be, but it's like a game and a half. It completely justifies its full price tag, and I think pretty much everybody should check it out, because as we've seen since the announcement that we're getting another Mario Golf game in the summer, this is plenty of Mario to last you for the next several months until Mario Golf and then whatever the inevitable next Mario game will be.
Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a rodeo clown!
All right, folks, and that is the kind of show it has been here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. It feels really good to be back here on the show. Big thanks to Alex for taking care of things.
I was worried this was going to be my show for the next 2 or 3 months, and I was like, I can do that, but like, hey Alex, you think you could cover me 2 weeks in a row, maybe a third? Okay. And then it was, I don't know if I'm coming back for a while. Well, shit.
Yeah. Now, as things are going right now, so what happens tomorrow, I get some blood work done, which is just to check that levels are coming down or at least leveled out.
Yeah.
I talked to my specialist in the first week of March, and evidently my sister-in-law, she's a nurse practitioner, so I check in with her constantly about my symptoms. She's like, well, if you don't feel like shit, if you're not in any pain, if certain things are looking like they're supposed to.
And she's blunt. She's not going to sugarcoat it. She'll be like straight up with you.
Yeah. So far, so good. Evidently one of the side effects of having jaundice is you're really itchy, because that's the toxins in your skin. That's about the only thing I have right now. Other than that, I am starting to heal up. I'm starting to look a little bit better. So hopefully nothing's wrong. I mean, worst comes to worst, they may have to do a scope to get rid of the gallstones that I have to widen the bile duct. I should pass them relatively easily is what I'm told. So I hopefully will avoid surgery, but there's a possibility I may have to get my gallbladder out. We'll figure it out when the time comes.
We said off there that weight loss surgery, it's 50-50. They may decide to take it out regardless, because one of the side effects of rapid weight loss, but also just so many people already have gallbladder issues. They're like, hey, would you like a 2-for-1 if we're already in there?
Yeah.
Just take it out.
Which is it's kind of weird, because I found out, as you mentioned, gallstones happen because of rapid weight loss. And over the last year and change, I've lost over 100 pounds.
Well, it's not the only reason, but that can be a major factor.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, wow, that's interesting. So hopefully I'm going to be okay. I mean, I'm starting to return to normal this week. I'm doing a couple podcasts, but I am taking my time. I'm doing things to feel better. So hopefully it'll be less of relying on Alex. I know Aaron Paulier and his wife Darlene are doing a new podcast, which launched this week. You should see it on our site this week. It's called Earth versus Soup, which is kind of a sub show for Future Imperfect, where they focus exclusively on 50s and 60s sci-fi. Their first episode is, I can't remember what it was. I know the second episode I just got today because I edited it. It's called Beyond the Time Barrier.
Cool.
So it's interesting because Aaron is like this knowledgeum of weird stuff. And to give you guys a preview of what we're going to be talking about on Future Imperfect, we're going to be talking about our episodes from the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation.
And I just recently rewatched them, and I got to say, you picked a stupid episode.
Yeah, that's the reason why.
Okay. Because I thought it was supposed to be episodes we love, but I guess it could be you could love a stupid episode.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the ones that stick with you, and that's just one that I remember because it was so weird and unusual. So we got that coming up. Another show that we're talking.
You just wanted it because you wanted to see Tasha Yar in that uniform.
Oh, yes. One of the other things we're going to be talking about is next month in March, we're going to be talking about Mars, and we're going to be talking about some of the missions that have gone to Mars, such as the Viking probes, Spirit, Opportunity, and most recently Perseverance, which touched down this last week on Mars. And it's unique because it's the first rover that has a helicopter drone attached to it. So it'll be the first tilt rotor to fly in another planet's atmosphere, which is tremendously cool. And that will help lead to the missions that will eventually get people on Mars and hopefully the next decade or so. So we'll be talking about all that and more cool stuff, maybe involving Elon Musk and Tesla and SpaceX, and not so much conspiracy theory stuff, but just weird stuff about the Red Planet.
And if you're people, if you have Apple TV Plus, watch For All Mankind. It's so good. That's all I got to say.
Other than that,
it was perfect timing that a NASA-based alternate history show premieres its first episode, I think the same day that
Perseverance hit.
Yeah. I mean, that had to be planned.
Yeah, it's probably not unlikely coincidence. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, if you want to see some cool things about Perseverance, you can go look it up on the official NASA website. There's tons of stuff on YouTube. It's starting to send back its first photos now.
I just saw it on the news. I believe, isn't this the first time that we're going to have rover images that are in color, in HD color, but also the first time that they've had a microphone that worked?
No, actually, it's funny that you mentioned this because I posted this the other day. This is not the first time we've had audio from another planet.
Well, they said it's the. Oh, I guess it's the first time NASA's had it.
Yeah, the Russians in the 1970s and the early 1980s sent probes to Venus, and when they did, they were able to record some audio from the surface of Venus before the probe melted. The probe lasted about 2 hours. It blew off one of its caps to one of its sample drills, and you could hear a Venusian lightning storm happen. You could hear the wind coming across the plains of Venus for about 15-20 minutes.
Lightning
really
and air that would vaporize you. No, thank you.
Yeah, you would melt if not vaporize. It's pretty fucked up.
Your blood would boil before you get a chance to burn.
Yeah, because the surface of Venus is, I think, 400, 500 degrees Fahrenheit.
And it's just all toxic gas.
Yeah, it's not a good time, no matter which way you spin it. But yeah, I mean...
Mars is so much more tame. Mars is like, yeah, the atmosphere sucks if there is any, but we could potentially build domes here and not die as long as we can maintain heat in the right, when it gets cold, which it always is, as long as we can maintain heat, we're okay. You go the opposite direction and it's like, no, thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to have like an informed discussion about that. We'll talk about all sorts of neat things. I'm trying to think of what else is coming up on the site. Alex is going to have some more Turd or Treasures coming up. Reviews I'm working on because I'm finally back at home working on stuff and providing nothing goes fucky. I'm finally going to have my review of SpongeBob, Sponge on the Run. I also have a review of the John Hughes movie collection on Blu-ray. And as I mentioned off the top of the show from Freely
What's
Publishing.
in the John Hughes collection?
I know it's Ferris Bueller, Pretty in Pink. She's having a baby and something else.
So it's the non-John Candy stuff. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm looking
Curly
forward.
Sue, maybe?
No, I know that for sure.
Okay.
So that'll be a date night with my wife where we watch all 5 of these movies.
I've got, what do I have here?
I'm in the beta for Guilty Gear Strive, the next mainline Guilty Gear game. I went to log in and play, and I got to check. I think it's specific times I have to play. So I'll take a look at that probably this week. G-Kids is sending over on Gaku Our Sound. I think it's from G-Kids and Shout Factory. So depending on when they ship it, it might be on this week's show. It might be on next week's show. I'm not 100% sure yet. Gaming wise, aren't we sort of we're in a lull as far as what's coming because everything got pushed back a bit?
Yeah, there isn't any major releases. I know Mass Effect isn't dated until May, so there's that. Resident Evil's not coming out till May. I don't know if there's anything super spectacular that I really give a shit about.
Because there may be stuff that we get that doesn't, that we can't actually talk about till after. Because February right now, as far as what's releasing this week, Bravely Default 2 that's the big title. I don't think we're getting a review copy, but I'm getting a purchase copy, but that doesn't come till Friday. So we ain't getting a review out for that on the weekend, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. As far as the rest of this week, it's Ghosts and Goblins, which I don't think either of us has.
Nope. I asked for a copy of Capcom Stadium. We did not get it due to limited availability.
Yeah, Yakuza Like a Dragon is having its release on PlayStation 5 now, which has already been out on Xbox, so we're not be talking about that. Technically, Persona, the review, even though the game comes out this week or comes out for people that pre-ordered digital earlier, like you've already got it.
Yeah.
I had my review copy like a month ago, so like it's one of those games where it's like we've had it out for a while. Then the next big titles are like early in March. There's like the new Harvest Moon. That's probably the biggest title for the first week. So it seems like there may be some stuff coming. It's probably going to be more movies that we're talking about the next couple weeks.
Yeah, so I'm sure we'll have something. I've got lots of RPGs, such as Free League Publishing's Tales from the Loop. I am working on getting interviews for the Aliens Colonial Marines book, which I know recently just got a little bit of a push into April for Alien Day, which is on the 26th.
Yeah.
So 4/26, you can look forward to some information about that. And we're also working on getting an interview with the Free League Publishing involving their Lord of the Rings RPG, which should be the One Ring RPG 2nd edition. So anyway, guys, until next time for ThisWeekInGeek.net, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike the Birdman saying, be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.